So again, on page 123, starting section 2. Up until this year of teaching, basically 3.1 was pretty much worthless because it was pretty tough for any of us to be able to graph neatly enough to see exactly where those two lines crossed. So in all other years that I've taught, this section was by far more valuable than the first one. However, this year with calculators, probably using the graphing it method is probably better and quicker than either one of these. However, you will need to learn how to do both of these methods. They will be on your test. And I'm not sure how I will test this chapter because if it's multiple choice, you can do every single problem using your calculator. And I'm not sure that's what I'm going for. I am definitely trying to use calculators more, but I'm not sure that I want to go to that fully step yet. So, not sure how it'll be tested, but you'll probably be required to write out some of your answers so I can see that you know how to do these methods. That's what the test is for, to see what you've learned as far as that goes. So, there are two methods that we will use to solve these that will not involve any graphing. It'll just be solving equations, and it will get us the answer that we're looking for. Okay? So, looking at the first one we'll cover is the substitution method. The other one later will be the elimination method, and you can pretty much choose. Your directions in your homework will tell you to use the substitution on some, the elimination on some, and then it will give you some just to do however you want to. So, looking at number 1, x plus 2y equals 8. And 1/2 x minus y equals 18. So it looks exactly the same as last time. Could you solve that problem using your calculator, graphing like last time? Yeah, absolutely, because you just have two equations. And again, what's the goal? Find the point of intersection. Find where these two lines are going to cross. So we've done the graphing method. Now we're doing substitution. When you are using substitution method, you're going to pick any one of these 4 variables that has a coefficient of 1. What's the coefficient? The number in front of the variable. So what's the coefficient of this x term? What's the coefficient of this one? And -1. So any of them that have a 1, you could use. Doesn't matter which one you pick, but you could solve any of them. It's just easier if it's already got a coefficient of 1. So if we pick this x, and we're going to solve for the x, what would we do to solve that equation for the x? Subtract the 2y. And we would get that x equals what? -2y plus 8, and really it doesn't matter the order for this, but it's good to stay in that habit. Put your variable first. So rather than solving for y like we normally would do, we just solve for x because it had a coefficient of 1. So that's basically step 1 of substitution method, is pick any one of these variables and get it by itself. Okay? After you've done that, you're going to, since you've solved for x, this is what equals x, you're going to plug that into the other equation for x. That's the substitution part. So you're going to substitute this right in there into the other equation. So in doing that, we have 1/2 times -2y plus 8, and then minus y equals 18. So we substituted that value in for the x.
Did you do like all that?
Do all of what part?
You could do all
As far as graphing it,
as far as like the algorithm method, you could just plug that equation in.
here,
Wouldn't you get the same answer?
no, because your variables in your calculator don't equal what they. If you just type that line of stuff in the main screen of your calculator, it wouldn't give you what you're looking for. So we distribute the 1/2 in. 1/2 times -2 would be what? Half of -2. -1y. And half of 8 plus 4 minus y equals 18. This is all algebra. This is just adding and subtracting like terms, getting variables by itself, solving equations. So, can we simplify anything over here? We have like terms. So we can do -1y minus y, which is -2y plus 4 equals 18. So solve for y, what would we do? Subtract 4. -2y equals 14. Divide -2. So y equals what? -7. Again, what are we looking for? An x and a y. Which one do we have? So we now know for this problem that our y is -7. So I think we would find the x then. Into which equation? Or the one that's already solved for x. You could plug it into either one of these, honestly, and get the right answer, but we're looking for an x, right? Didn't we already solve that one for x? So all you need to do is plug it in right there. So x equals -2 times -7 plus 8. So what would we get? What? What would this be? Plus 8 then? What? Now normally, in all the years past, my reaction to that problem is, oh my gosh, that's way easier than graphing. Probably not your reaction this year, right? Shouldn't be if you knew how to do the graphing. But that is substitution method. Let's see, look, here's your steps. I don't see any. So if you want to write some steps to follow for substitution, step 1, what did we do in the first step? Solve for any variable with a coefficient of 1. So any variable basically that doesn't have a number in front of it, that has a coefficient of 1. So that was the first step. Step 2 then was plugging that in or substituting. So you plug that expression, whatever you solve for, into the other equation. And solve. solve to find your first value. So in that step, you will either get X or Y, depending on which one you solve for. So applying this to the problem we just did, in step 1 we solved for X in one equation, and then we plugged that expression into the other equation for X, and we solved for Y. So then you plug that first value that you find, again in our first problem it is -7, plug that into the equation you solved in step 1 to get your other